Well, welcome. Tonight we're going to talk about one of the most important and probably most stressful events that all of us as parents have either gone through, thought about going through, or scared to death is coming. It's when we send our little cherubs to college. And we've got two people here to kind of give us some hints on how to apply to college, how to finance college, and everything in between. So why don't we start with introductions?
Thanks for having us out. My name is Jason Galmini. I'm one of 6 school counselors at Milford High School. I'm going into my 12th year as a counselor.
And I'm Kate Molinari. I'm also a school counselor, and I'm in my 11th year.
So now, the first question. Obviously, seniors, they had better already have gone through this, but juniors should start thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Where do I want to go to college? I remember my ungrateful offspring started with College of Pluto, University of Mars. How far away from the center of the universe can I go?
Mm-hmm.
And the best advice I was given is, don't comment.
Mm-hmm.
And sure enough, it went from Alaska to California, and slowly both of them went to Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm.
But when somebody comes in and says, I don't know where to go to college, what do you tell them is step one?
And that's very common. I mean, we have lots of students who understand that they want to go to college, they have an idea of what college is, but they have no idea where they want to go or where even to start. And I think that's great advice as a parent, just kind of saying, all right, we're going to take a step back, let the student explore some things on their own, let them kind of see what's out there, and like you said, a lot of them do tend to gravitate more towards home. So we're working really closely with our seniors right now to really try to fine-tune those schools that they're going to be applying to. They're still searching some schools and visiting schools, but we really try to work as early as we can with our juniors, our sophomores, our freshmen, and just getting them exposed to some college experiences. So last year we ran a bunch of field trips to some various schools, some popular ones, some in-state, 1 or 2 out-of-state, just trying to get kids to go and visit a school, get their feet onto campus, see what it's like, what is the environment like, what do colleges offer, what do the buildings look like. So we're really trying to expose more and more of our younger students just getting onto college campuses and understanding what kind of goes into that process.
Would it be safe to ask question number 1, what kind of college would you feel comfortable in? Because I know in my family, my darling bride and I are absolute opposites. I loved Holy Cross. 2,600 kids when I was there. My junior and senior classes, a lot of them had 4 to 6 chemistry majors in it, and that was it. My darling bride went to a little school called Penn State, where she had 10,000 people in her class.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just the idea of having a class of 350, or taking a bus from one end of campus to the other.
Mm-hmm.
But when kids have asked me, I've always said, well, wait a minute, are you going to be happiest at a BU, where to me, I know they say they have a campus, but the streets of Boston,
Right.
you're in the city. And that has its advantages for some people. For me, it would be death. Or a Penn State, which, is huge, but out in the prairie lands.
Mm-hmm.
She'll kill me for saying that, but or a college like Holy Cross, where you have a defined campus, you get to know everybody. So is that a safe place to start?
Yes, and that's why we want them to get onto campuses early, because a lot of kids won't have a concept of what that even means until they've visited a handful of schools that all feel different. So that's one of the huge benefits of getting kids onto college campuses early, and obviously getting them thinking about what they want to major in, what they want to do, so that they're looking at actual programs at schools and not just the campus itself.
Not just the pretty buildings.
Right.
So you start with the environment, big school, little school, rural school, city school.
Yep.
That-
State school, public school,
But I was going to ask
school.
that next.
Yeah.
And then the
School.
second thing is, what do you love doing?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I went to Holy Cross, and once a year I would go to the dark side of campus, do some liberal arts stuff,
Mm-hmm.
get scared, come back to chemistry where it was easy and predictable. I hated math, but I learned that I really like math a lot better than I like psychology, sociology, and all that stuff. But I don't know that a lot of kids know exactly what they want to study.
They don't.
Right. No, they don't. And colleges understand that too. I mean, it's very hard to ask an 18-year-old to decide right now what you're going to do for the rest of your life. So I think when we're working with students, we have some students that are like, I know I want to go into engineering. This is what I want to do. I'm looking at engineering schools, and that's great. And we'll kind of tailor our counseling with them towards that. And we have some students that say, I have no idea what we want to do. And there's a lot of schools, there's a lot of great liberal arts schools or larger schools that have a lot of various majors, and we can help kind of steer them towards. And we do a lot of work with our students. We try to get them as early as possible going online. We have a program called Naviance that we use quite a bit.
I remember that.
I've had it for a long time.
I remember that.
Yeah, they're on it constantly. And
564 times on Naviance.
Right.
It shows us the number when we
does.
look. It's funny.
And they can take personality profiles to see what kind of majors they might be interested in. They can search colleges that have the different majors they might be interested in. And we really work closely with them to try to help them out as much as we can.
But it's safe, though, that you can say this person is a science geek.
Yeah.
This person's more of a creative writer. So that should give you an idea, because, if you love engineering, okay, little schools like MIT or WPI, RPI, they come to mind. If you're more into the writing and all that, or the business, there's business.
Absolutely.
So I could decide, like big school, little school, then kind of what's the main thrust of the college? And then how do you describe to them how far you want to be away?
All kids think they want to go really far away initially. They really do, especially in a town with as many kids in it as Milford. They've been going to school with the same kids. They think their high school is small now, which is hilarious because my high school had 200 kids in it. And I'm like, small? You guys are crazy. But so they think they want to go huge and they want to go far away because they don't want to go anywhere where they know anyone. They want to start over. That's what they think. Very few of them follow through on that. As they start to go and visit schools that are far away, or as they go to other parts of the country and kind of feel the different feel of the pace of life and just the way people, that's scary. That's two big changes. And you see a lot of kids decide to come back. I always say, if you love your mother's meatballs and you want some place to do your laundry, you want to be within driving distance.
Well, we learned, Emily told us that she was assigned the duty of protecting Holy Cross from evil spirits. So we sent a bottle of evil spirits. It had TIDE on the label. And she made sure that for 4 years, that bottle of detergent never got opened.
Yeah.
And it used to be funny because she actually bought 2 laundry bags.
Yep.
And every week when we would go up, the Gazinta got delivered to her and the Gazauda came home.
Yeah.
And then she explained, she said she didn't really mind the laundry, but Grandma ironed everything.
Oh, that's
So
a nice perk.
That's an appeal.
So she was far enough away. Holy Cross is 20 miles.
Yeah.
Because we had to have the talk saying, you're going to have to do things and experience things in college. And I understand becoming a real person, you have to do that. Now, if you love your father, don't let me find out. Because my heart won't take it.
Right.
Because when we were there, nobody ever drank. Nobody
Of course
ever did
not.
anything but study.
Me neither. That's right.
Absolutely.
How many times we'd show up on a Sunday and she was running tired, and my wife would say, "Oh, she had a tough night." I said, "Yeah, she must have been in the library real late."
Yeah, too late.
Late hours.
I just, I'm paying $65,000 a year. Keep my fantasy alive.
Yeah.
So you go through that, and it's hard because Milford kids. I mean, my Lexi, and I've told her she's finally a Milfordian, 3rd generation Milford, and she lives within 2 miles of her mother.
Yeah.
So she,
Yeah.
So she is a Milfordian now.
Right.
But they don't understand that 20 miles, 30 miles away is far enough away. But when they do get a little homesick and they don't want to admit it, they can scoot home pretty quick.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely. And we're lucky with being in Massachusetts.
Yep.
We have some world-class institutions right here in state. So pretty much anything a student would want to study, they're able to study here. Whether it's UMass Amherst, our flagship UMass school, liberal arts colleges, engineering programs. We have large schools, small schools,
Ivy
schools
League.
in the city, Ivy League, UMass Boston now having housing. Like we really have something in the state to offer a lot of students. So what we've really found is that a lot of students will look out of state, but once they start doing their research and kind of fine-tuning their lists, everything they really need can be found in state. So
Now, their lists,
Mhm.
I mean, we've always had this debate with the school committee. Because the school committee believes Milford High is great and all that, and I don't care about your opinion. The opinion I care about, your job is to educate our children to get them accepted into colleges. And I feel very good that it appears to me, when my daughter applied, she got in everywhere she applied. I can't ask for better than that. Is that just my impression, or how do our kids do when they apply to some of these better schools?
I mean, I think we have done very, very well. In the last few years, we've had a student or more get into an Ivy League school each of the last few years. We've had students get into Harvard, into Yale,
Princeton.
into Princeton. We have a number of our students getting into, schools like Boston College, Boston University, Northeastern.
That other Jesuit school.
When I started 12 years ago, those schools were not as competitive as they are now. Those schools have gotten extremely, extremely competitive to get into, and we still find that we are sending our students to these types of schools. So we find that our kids do a very good job of researching schools and understanding what it takes to be accepted into schools. And of course, we're going to have some reach schools, and
We push for that. We want them to have reach schools.
Now, again, reach school. The people who have a junior for the first time, they may not understand.
And they're
what's
afraid.
a reach school?
Yeah, and they're afraid of reach schools. A reach school is any school where your academic profile, your GPA, your class rank, your SAT scores, one or all of those are slightly below their average student, essentially. So there's that's a reach school. That's a reach school. And then there's obviously a Hail Mary school, right? Like when I applied to school, that would have been I could never have gotten into Harvard. You know what I mean? That would have been
Well, I looked today at Holy Cross, and I was on the club. We were looking at scholarships, and I remember the last 30. I saw two. I said, we can throw these bums out. This girl got a B+ in freshman year. And look at this guy. He's a deadbeat. He got a B and a B+ in high school. Every other grade was straight A's.
Right. You don't want to be measured with that stick. I didn't want to be.
I would never have gotten in.
That's right. So a reach school is, it's a school that it's not a sure thing. They might not be the average student, the perfect student that they're looking for. They might be a little bit lower in a couple of categories. We have a lot of kids who do phenomenally in school, and they work really hard. They take really hard classes, but maybe their SAT scores are a little below where some of these really high schools want them. So that's a little bit of a reach for them. We still say you apply to those schools, okay? Either you get in and you surprise yourself, or you learn how to deal with rejection, and both of those things are super important.
They are.
So
a lot of times this is the first time students might have been told no, and I think a big part of maturing is understanding, okay, maybe I didn't get into my top choice, but I still got into all these other great schools, and they're still going to offer me wonderful opportunities. How do I deal with that and move forward and go to something that's probably going to be a better fit for you?
I remember the person who put it in perspective for us was first day at Holy Cross. Emily's in amongst her peers. And the class dean said, how many of you were the top 10% of your class? Every hand went up. He says, look around, 90% of you no longer are.
Yep.
And it was sobering, to realize that, hey, the bottom of the curve just dropped out. Everybody here was top 10%. Now I got to really work.
And we talk about that. I talk about that with my kids. I say, when you're picking a school, do you want to be the smartest kid at a school, or do you want to be the dumbest kid at a school? That's a choice, because some kids are comfortable with one position and not the other. I was happy to be somewhere in the middle, I think. But that's a hard thing for kids to consider.
I never had an idea where I wanted to go.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, Uncle Paul, Paul Raftery, probably one of the best principals that I've ever seen. He cared so much for the kids. He and Dr. Salvia, the guidance counselor, said, "You're applying to Holy Cross." I said, "I am?" I said, "You'll love it." And I went up there, and it was funny, when I got on campus, I said, "Holy moly, I'm home."
Mm-hmm.
I felt it. I mean, I went to that other Jesuit school, the home of the big pigeon, and it didn't feel the same.
Right.
Now, BC, we love BC. We'll root for BC unless they play Holy Cross.
Right. Naturally.
No.
Yes. But it was a great school.
Mm-hmm.
I was scared to death because I'm not overly religious. And I was scared to death they're going to make me go to school. Make me go to church every day.
Right.
Then I found out Jesuits are sneaky. They sneak their values into you without knowing. All of a sudden, for some reason, we're all going to church on Sundays, even though we didn't have to, or Saturday.
Right, and that's a big point too, that you don't have to, and that's a big misconception too. Students think, well, if I go to a Catholic school or whatever, we're going to have to go to church every week, and that's really not the case.
By the time you're graduating, the value system of
And that's
giving back
yes.
and caring about your community, they snuck it in on me.
Right,
Yeah.
and that's what's important, the values that you're learning.
Mm-hmm.
So now I figured out, okay, I want to be close. I don't want to be close, but I want to be far enough.
Right.
Okay, I don't want to go to Suffolk and Franklin, a little too close for me.
Mm-hmm.
But any of the mass schools, I'm far enough away that I'm independent, but if I want mom's meatballs, I can run home in an hour. You talk about reach schools, UMass, when I was in school, was a given.
Yep.
You always applied there because that guaranteed you didn't have to learn to say, do you want fries with that order?
Mm-hmm.
Today, holy moly.
And that is something that we are constantly dealing with because the parents' opinions and experiences with applying to college are things have changed so much since they went to school, since I went to school, so trying to get parents to understand, UMass isn't a safety school for you. You don't have a 3.8. You know what I mean? That's your average student.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but we always thought if you could sign your name, you got into UMass.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But now what I see, what they've done with that school.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that kind of segues into financial, because, let's not kid ourselves, $68,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
If we hadn't paid tuitions for our kids, they'd be walking out of school owing $250,000.
Right.
Which
Yeah.
Right.
I could see some of the families saying, well, I could pay $100,000 at UMass,
Right.
or $250 at Holy Cross.
Mm-hmm.
I get the same bachelor's. You can argue quality and all that good stuff, but how big of an influence is that decision?
Big. It is very big. And when you mentioned financial aid, and you mentioned UMass Amherst becoming so much more competitive. We're seeing that with all the state schools. If you've seen Bridgewater State lately, and the campus is gorgeous, they put a lot of money into their campus and their buildings, and the state schools do offer quite a value for students. They are much more affordable, and as a result, they're getting a lot more applicants every year. So we've seen the state schools becoming much more competitive to get into.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's 10 years ago, your Bridgewater State might have been your safety school, and now we're seeing that's like their students' top school, top choice. And financial reasons definitely play a very big part in where students are applying.
Yep.
A problem that we see with the college application process is that anything else, you go to buy a car, you go to buy anything else, you find out how much it is, then you go to make your purchase. Whereas colleges, you got to do your applications first, then you're doing your financial aid. So you're not going to know how much you're paying for that college until March or April. So it's difficult for students.
Okay, I'm confused. I know Holy Cross because I got a tie, which was my $64,000 tie. And the next year I got my $65,000 hat. Because all I know is I paid that much money, and that year I got a hat for Christmas.
Nice.
But realistically, what does it cost to go to a state school? 25, 30?
So UMass Amherst right now is $28,000 for housing and
All in. It's
Yep.
going to cost me about
$28,000,
30 grand.
Right.
Mhm.
But students are going to be looking to apply for financial aid. They can do the FAFSA starting October 1st. So they're not going to know how much that's really going to cost them until they get their financial aid packages back, which is, January, February, March comes then. So that's why when we're meeting with our students, we don't really want them to apply to just 2 or 3 schools. We're trying to encourage them to apply to 6, 7 schools.
And vary the kinds of schools they're applying to, especially
And how much
if
they
money
cost.
is a concern.
Right.
Because another thing that a lot of people don't think about that is a really great value is community college. It's got a stigma attached to it. Like, that's what you do if you can't go to a 4-year school, but that's not the case. It's just a really smart financial decision, really.
Right.
You take 2 years, you go to a community college, you transfer those credits to a state university,
I've heard about
guaranteed
that.
acceptance if you
Any
have
state
over,
school in Massachusetts.
right, if you have over a 3.0, it's a mass
See,
transfer.
I've heard that over and over that, in our days, Dean Junior College,
Mm-hmm.
if you couldn't get accepted in a, quote, traditional 4-year college, you went to Dean Junior.
Mm-hmm.
Becker.
Right.
Now all of a sudden you sit there and say, there's no Dean Junior, it's Suffolk.
Mm-hmm.
But the Quincy,
Right.
if you go there for 2 years, what's that cost?
So
Oh,
you're
I
probably
mean,
talking about
I think it's like
Okay, so
$15,000. It's not. I mean, I think it's like $8,000 or $9,000 a year. It's
Yeah,
not-
I would say
it's-
I would say the average cost for for a full year is probably about $6,000 to $7,000 to go there. And of course, there's no housing. That's the biggest.
Well, no,
drawback
but even
of
with housing,
college.
so you're talking
But
15 a year, so 30 grand to go 2 years
no,
to
I would say
Quincy.
much less. I would say about 7,000.
Well, if you're going to get an
Well, with
apartment
housing.
there,
Oh, with
yeah.
housing, right.
So
right.
all in 15.
Yep.
I go to a state school,
Mm-hmm.
30.
Mhm.
I go to a private school, because they all seem to be about the same, and if I'm incorrect, let me know, 65.
Yeah, I mean, it's anywhere between 50 and 70
Yeah.
for most
So-
private schools now.
30 grand buys me 2 years, and then I transfer
To UMass Amherst.
at 30 grand a year, so I got 60, 90
Mm-hmm.
versus 120.
Correct.
Right.
Right.
And you
And
have a
community
degree from UMass Amherst.
Right.
Yeah, nobody ever says you have half a degree from Quincy, and no,
Mhm.
the degree says UMass.
Yep.
And the community colleges are starting to do a lot of really great things. As for example, at Mass Bay, students can actually live on campus at Framingham State,
Oh,
and then they will bus them to Mass Bay to take classes. So they started off. I think they allowed maybe 25 to 50 students a couple years ago, and I think they've been trying to grow that program out.
And they also have that program where you can lock in the Mass Bay rate and finish at Framingham State paying Mass Bay tuition. So community,
wait, say that one again?
I know. So you pay for your 2 years at Mass Bay, but you lock in that tuition rate, and then you go to Framingham
So I
State.
could
You're
get
paying
a
Mass Bay
Framingham
tuition.
State degree for 60 grand?
Mm-hmm.
No, obviously financial aid kicks in and all, but
Correct.
if I'm starting at 60,
Yep.
it's Holy Cross, I'm starting at 250.
Correct.
Right.
No matter what you weigh in, I'm
It's
not
a
going to get
value.
anywhere near.
Right, and this is why we're seeing these state schools becoming so much more competitive to get into, because
Mhm.
they're drawing top students, top kids in their class, top 20% in their class are still applying to these state schools that are more affordable.
Yeah,
that
the
they give
valedictorian
great educations.
Went to UMass Amherst just a few years ago. That's where he went, and he was like, "This is a good decision for me financially," you know.
Well, I mean, there's a kid who could have gotten into
And
most
he-
any
and he
school.
did.
Right, yep.
And he did.
But again, 100 grand versus 250 or 120 versus 250,
Mm-hmm.
if you got to pay the freight. Frankly, I don't know how some of these kids start. When I graduated, I had $32.80 in my pocket.
Right.
And now all of a sudden, if you got 50 or 100 grand worth of student debt,
It's really hard.
It is difficult.
It's hard
and it's hard on
even-
the parents. Because financial aid, they do limit how much a student can borrow per year, but it's really on the parents that have to take up the bulk of that. So it's private loans, or students are taking out private loans where their parents have to co-sign, or parents are taking out loans. There's a lot of loans, and that's when we run into trouble. We know how much debt our country is in with student loans, and
February
Insane.
2014, my darling bride and I went out and celebrated that we wrote our last monthly $5,000 check.
Yeah. Yeah,
You were
that
writing
is a
5
celebration.
grand. Of course, I loved a month later when I got the letter saying, now that you're not paying tuition, would you consider doing an extra month as a donation? It's like, yeah, go away.
Yeah.
You got enough from me here.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still paying off my student loans. I'll probably be paying those off until my own kids are going to college. So it's, it's a huge factor. I think that really weighs a lot in what schools students are picking to go to.
Well, and it's also difficult to encourage kids that are in a precarious financial situation sometimes to take that debt on.
Right.
That's a hard thing.
It is.
That's why, it's great that there's some other options now, community colleges being a great option, but it has to be kind of destigmatized, I think, because a lot of people, not just kids, but parents, because again, back in the day, that's where you went if you couldn't make it.
Right.
But now it's like a feasible solution to a very real financial problem.
We went to UMass to see some friends, and I was amazed. I was so proud of what the state of Massachusetts has done. Because like I said, when we grew up, you applied there just so that you didn't have to flip burgers. And you're almost, when you got the acceptance, it was like, yeah.
Right.
And all of a sudden, I'm seeing the quality of students going to, Bridgewater State, or
Absolutely.
UMass Dartmouth. It's not Dartmouth anymore, it's UMass Dartmouth. I'm pretty impressed.
Absolutely.
So how do you even start that conversation? I mean, if you came to me and said, would you like to spend $250,000? I would have probably said, well, not what I thought I'd want to do today.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Not on my hit list.
Right.
Yep. I mean, that is a very real conversation that we have with our students. And when I'm meeting with my seniors, I ask them flat out, have you had the financial conversation with your parents? Do you know how much they can afford for you? Do you have brothers or sisters that are going to school right now? There's a lot of students that we're working with, they have older siblings that are going to college.
Whoa.
And we're trying to start these conversations much earlier. So it's not really with my seniors. We're trying to have these conversations with our juniors, our sophomores, trying to get them to understand what it is about financial aid. We have financial aid nights at the high school, where we get people from Massachusetts Education Finance Authority to come and talk. And in the past, those conversations were really geared towards seniors. Now we open it up to everybody. We want 8th graders,
Right.
8th grade parents to come to these meetings.
No, I can see that because, again, both my kids started junior year. And what I encourage them and people that come to me is, junior year, June, is when you should start your full court press. Because by then, the colleges have gotten over their May acceptance, and the admissions people and everybody can start breathing for
Right.
3 or 4 months till
Yeah.
the seniors wake up in the fall and say, oh my God, I have to start applying.
Right.
So, is it safe to say that if you're a rising junior, you should start really thinking hard and planning what schools to go visit,
Yes.
especially in the area? Just drive there.
Right.
Right.
Because I remember the first time I went to BU, I was like, oh God, no. I mean, it's a great school, but
Yeah, but you had to be there to know you hated it.
I just said, no, I can't
Right.
imagine, this is not a campus.
Right.
And
Yeah.
And a lot of kids say that. A lot of kids are like, this isn't what I thought. Like, this is what I had in mind when I thought about college, and they don't feel.
But other kids look and say, I'm in Boston. This
Right.
is wonderful.
Well, it's the colleges of the Fenway, all those schools they're great schools, and they're all within walking distance of each other, but it doesn't feel like a college campus. It feels like tiny, like enclaves in a city, Some kids love that city feel, and that's what they want.
When my daughter first said she was going to Clark.
Yeah,
No,
you're like,
we
not
were in
South
Holy
Main
Cross,
Street.
where they had, so. And our guards had 45 caliber voices. So if you did something bad, they yelled real loud.
Yeah.
So once a year we'd come down, go to Maine South, visit friends at Clark,
Inside the fence.
get scared and
Yep.
run back up the hill.
Yep.
When she said she was going there, it scared the living heck out of me. But yet, once you got to know Clark, it was that little enclave.
Yeah. Yep.
And it was probably the best thing, when I think of her performance. I mean, she did have second semester junior year where she screwed up. She got a 3.95.
Oh my goodness.
It was like,
I'm
okay,
gonna give her a really hard time about that when
it
I
was
see
that
her.
semester, the 3 years there, I'm looking saying, what did we do this semester? We got a B plus?
How dare
Would
she.
we see how you slack off? But I mean, she just jived.
Yeah.
It was her.
Yeah.
She loved it. It was there. Of course, I loved it because they were 20 miles away.
Right.
Absolutely.
So, you know, I could go up whenever she'd allow it. Yeah.
Which was, you know, once a month.
Not
Once a
often.
week. It wasn't like Emily, where with Emily it was twice a week.
Yeah.
Now, she was cheerleading. Me, the ultimate who cares about sports games to watch. I signed up for season tickets for everything that they cheered for.
Aw.
Nice.
You know, so
Yeah.
you'd get the 5-minute kid fix before
Yeah.
the game.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then I felt like I was with her for 2 hours.
Right.
'Cause I
You
was
could
watching.
see her. Yeah.
At halftime, she'd come over for 5 minutes, and then afterwards,
See you later, Dad.
see you later.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
oh, this is okay. I
Yeah.
got
This
to
is
see
good.
her.
Yeah. This worked.
You know?
Yep.
And it just worked because we were worried, okay, we don't want to be pushing, and then it'd be, you coming up this weekend?
Right.
Well, there's no game. Well, you could take us to brunch. It's like, okay, okay, I have no problem admitting it, you know.
Right.
So it worked out as a family.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, I got to admit, we have the most dysfunctional family. We still do everything together.
Well, that's nice.
You know, it's like
Yeah, that's
everywhere we go as a family. We do things as a family.
Yeah.
And college just felt like we still doing things as a family.
Right.
Right.
You know, but that's the kind of conversation I've told kids you got to have with your parents.
Absolutely.
Because there's certain you don't once a month, once every 2 months.
Hmm.
Good
Once
enough.
a year.
Once, I'd be dying.
Yeah.
I'd be dying.
Yeah.
You know, if I only got to see my kids every 3 months or.
Yep.
Well, there's
I mean-
FaceTime.
Yeah, but it's not the same.
No.
Especially
Not
now
quite.
with Chaser, the grandson, having him a mile and a half away.
Yeah, that's so nice.
Yeah, we like that. And now we have a granddaughter on backlog.
Yep.
She's being delivered in January.
Yeah.
Oh. But it's the little things like that that I've always encouraged people to say, beginning of junior year,
Yes.
start.
Right.
Mhm.
And start planning your spring because you've just lost it.
That's right. Well, that's something else that we've seen in our time in doing this job is the application season is getting earlier and earlier. So last year we got some really valuable feedback from some parents saying, so I have a student who's applying to a lot of like top tier schools and they're using the common application and he has to write 15 supplemental essays. I think Holy Cross has some supplemental essays also. I wish we had known that this was something he was going to have to do because here we are. We thought we were getting started early in August of his senior year. We'd already had the schools. No, we had the schools picked out. We knew all
August
that.
of senior year?
He had the list. He had seen all the schools, but he hadn't looked at the essays. He didn't know that there were all these supplements, and he was like, now I got to write all these extra essays, and that was really surprising to the family. That's something we're seeing more and more. They want more information because they get more applications, so they want more information to make better informed decision about who they're accepting. But that requires more time, and kids still have to go to school and play
Right,
sports, and
right.
so
It's a lot of
And
time.
be kids.
and that would be nice. We would like them to have some time for that. So you know, everything is kind of getting pushed forward,
But
and
again, then it's safe when I tell people, come the beginning of junior year.
yes,
Right.
Start,
Yes.
put your books, get your little boxes, and pick out your 7 or 8 schools that you think are going to be the ones.
yep,
And put a checklist as to what needs done
right,
to fill each box.
right,
Absolutely. You know, we start planting those seeds with our freshmen and sophomores and try to get them to start thinking about
try is
life
the operative
after
word
high
there.
school. Well, they can't think of life after
Yeah.
high school. It's too far away from them. They're still a little too immature. They don't understand. Hey, in a few years,
It's
I'm
going to
not
go
gonna
by
be
really
living at mom
How
and
do you
fast.
get
dad's
the
house
parents?
anymore.
Because I've always found the key was beginning of junior year, saying, okay, these essays are a pain in the. We all agree. If it makes a $5,000 difference, maybe you ought to be encouraging your cherub
Right,
and helping them.
right,
Because one of the things I've always said is, don't worry about cheating. You know, yes, your son or daughter should be independent. The heck with that. You work with them, cheat, push them.
right,
You know,
Yeah.
my darling bride edited every essay they wrote.
right. Of course, that's
And
not
that's the key
cheating.
word is editing. That's,
Yeah.
that's what we like to see. We like to try to have the students lead the charge, but the parents be there to support them.
Well, I mean, many of the first essays, I heard it was, what was the technical term? Yuck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, this
Yeah.
is not the best you can do.
Right.
Right.
And then the girls, I mean, they grind, and
Right.
by the time they hit the middle of junior year, they had already practiced writing essays.
Mm-hmm.
So when it came down to the real ones,
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't culture shock. And
Right.
they already knew. Now, Emily, God bless her, gave us the heart attack because she just said, I'm going to Holy Cross.
Right.
It's like, no, you got to apply to other schools. Why? I'm going to Holy Cross.
That child.
You know, it's like, please. You know, she'll
She
be
knows what
flipping
she wants.
burgers if she doesn't get in. And I was scared to death because I was seeing the caliber of student that was getting into Holy Cross.
Right.
You know, and I'm sure BC and all the other schools
Yep.
are the same. But, you know, a lot of people, when they tell me, well, Milford High just isn't cutting it.
Mm-hmm.
And I sit there and say, really? As far as I'm concerned, you got my daughters the opportunity that I'm paying you for,
Mm-hmm.
which was to get into the schools that we as a family decided
Yep.
that they should apply to.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, for Kate and I, we've both been school counselors at Milford High School for years. My 12th year, Kate's 11th year. We're both from out of town. Kate's from Massachusetts. I'm from Connecticut. We both have families, and I'm choosing to raise my family here in Milford because I do really value the education. You know, we were living out of town for a number of years, and then when we had twins, we decided, okay, like we need to kind of upgrade the house. Right? There are 3 kids.
We can't
now.
all live here
We
anymore.
can't all live. It's too small. So when we were looking to move a year ago, May, Milford, of course, rose to the list because we do love this town and we do see the kind of education that kids are getting. So, you know, we chose to move to Milford, and my son is now in 1st grade. Has had a wonderful experience in kindergarten, 1st grade. Has Mrs. Rizzio now, who's awesome. And my girls will be at Brookside next year, and Kate too is.
Yeah, I'm from out of town, but I school choice my kids to Milford, and all across all the schools we see the great things that they're doing. I mean, at the high school, we're the icing on the cake. We're like, you know, we're the end of the road, so everyone analyzes our results, but anything that any of the kids do are a product of great schools all the way through.
And you look at what we've done with Woodland.
Mm-hmm. It's beautiful.
It is
It's,
beautiful.
you know, and the next one, I mean, everybody joked about we saved money for 11 years,
Mm-hmm.
and we did not use profanity, and we had to pay for Woodland.
Mm-hmm.
And we recommending another $500,000 go into the stabilization account.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, people are coming saying, okay, for 12 years you've been saying we needed it because there's a school coming. Why are we putting money away now? I looked, I said, there's a school coming. Because in 8 years, the high school will be on the list.
Yep.
You know, personally, I don't believe that we're going to knock down the high school.
Mm-hmm.
We couldn't do it if we wanted to. There's no place to put it. But that fortress needs updating.
Right.
You know, it
Absolutely.
reminds me of an old battleship that the hull is just fine. We just need new guns and new electronics. So you start thinking about 8 years from now, and frankly, it's your job to keep the kids learning in those 8 years. It's our job
Absolutely.
as residents and as FinCom to figure out how to afford in 8 years to redo the high school
Mm-hmm.
and bring that up to the same level that Woodland is.
Absolutely.
You know, so I'm pretty proud of what we've done, and the future. Could we be better? Absolutely. We always can be better.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, I will just say, you know, with the population that we're serving and the number of kids that we're seeing, I think we're doing great.
I do
You know,
too.
I think that the kinds of schools kids are getting into are amazing. There was a dry spell for a little while. We didn't have any Ivy League kids, and then I like to think that we came on, and
that's right.
you know, and now we have.
Now, I'll give you a chance to answer the concern. A lot of parents are scared to death that we have lower test scores
Mm-hmm.
than towns around us, and that's going to hurt our kids. Fact or fiction?
That's fiction, I feel.
Test scores like what?
Well, they look at MCAS,
MCAS.
and they say
MCAS.
there's schools around us that are towns around us that have better MCAS scores.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean I'm getting a lesser education for my children?
I don't think it could be further from the truth. You know, when you look at our MCAS scores, I feel like we are doing a very good job of teaching our students and preparing them for college. You know, last year we didn't have any student fail the English MCAS. Every student got needs improvement or improved. I feel like we are definitely growing in that area. I mean, for me personally, I've never been a big fan of MCAS. I've never been a big fan of SATs. I don't personally like standardized scores. SATs, statistically it's shown, like it does not predict success in college. It doesn't.
Some schools aren't even requiring them.
More
That's
and
right.
more schools are going test optional because they understand that too. It does not predict
But then
college
let me
success.
ask you a question. How does a school, okay, I'm going to put in an application. I'm not going to have a standardized test score. I've got a 3.8. Kate has a 3.8 from another school. Okay, what do they use as the determining factor as to you or me?
That's a great question. So what have you done for extracurriculars? What has Kate done? Have you just been a participant in your extracurriculars? Well, Kate, you led some, so you've developed a program.
Also, what opportunities were available to you? Like at a school like Milford, we have 18 AP classes you can take. If you've taken none of those or one of those and someone 2 towns over has taken 6 with the same GPA, that says something about the strength of your curriculum, right? In my town, there were no APs. I mean, there were 200 kids in my school. You couldn't take an AP class if you wanted to. That wasn't an opportunity that I had. So when they compared me to another student, they're comparing me against the opportunities that were afforded me, not, and that I took advantage of. So that actually becomes kind of a big deal.
Back in 1974, when we walked to school uphill both ways.
Both ways.
I remember we were banished our senior year, 3 of us, to Dean Junior College. There weren't any more science courses. We had taken them all. What they called AP. So Uncle Paul Raftery sent 3 of us over to take chemistry and biology at Dean Junior, which was fantastic.
Right.
But we had to drive out of the center of the universe to another town 3 days a week. I couldn't ask for better because I got, a heck of an education out of it. But today, our kids don't have to do that.
That's right. Milford High School, our kids, the colleges come to us. So we had 2 classes taught last year by Framingham State on campus at Milford High School that students could take. AP classes they can take. We have 18 different AP classes that they can take. We have virtual high school. They can take AP classes online.
If we don't offer them.
If we don't offer them.
In the virtual high school classes, you're not going against the low end of the curve.
Right.
You're competing against top kids from across
the country.
Yeah, the country. Yep.
Anywhere. Right.
They're real people. They're just virtual.
Right.
Well, I mean, to me, the first semester at Holy Cross was a shock. I mean, I have to study.
Right.
I always got given A's.
Yep.
Yeah.
I might open the book here or there, and all of a sudden you realize so weren't everybody else in this class.
Right.
Right.
So I love the idea of making me compete. It's like being a local runner, and all of a sudden I'm competing on a state level, or in this case, a national level.
Right.
It's going to make me run faster. I'm just going to try harder.
Yep, absolutely.
So you feel comfortable in supporting the statement that our top kids are getting as good of an education as anybody around us?
Absolutely. Not a doubt in my mind. Yeah.
So now we look at the ugly part, finances. The dreaded FAFSA.
Right.
Yes.
That always annoyed me because I did ask one time saying, okay, I was told if you make more than $32.80 a year, you're not getting financial aid.
Right.
But schools like Holy Cross made us fill in FAFSA.
Right.
Yep.
So I said,
Just so
why?
they can reject you.
Right.
Right.
Well, wasn't that? What I was told is, well, now we know who we can put an arm on once we accept you.
Right.
Because we know how much you make,
Right.
and we can figure out how much you can donate. But how do people go about positioning themselves the best way for financial aid?
So FAFSA is difficult. So every school that a student applies to is going to take the FAFSA. And the biggest factor for that is parent income. There's really not much you can do to get around that. And there are a lot of private schools that are taking what's called the CSS profile. So if you apply to Holy Cross now, you got to do the CSS profile as well as the FAFSA.
What's a CSS?
So the CSS profile is part of the College Board. College Board is the one that runs the SATs. And so colleges that typically have more money to offer for financial aid, They're going to want to see the FAFSA that just looks at parent income, and they make students also go on the College Board website, collegeboard.org, and fill out the profile. Kind of stinks, the profile actually does cost money to send to the colleges, kind of ironic.
Oh, what a surprise.
Big surprise,
Shocking.
the College Board is charging money for this thing. So the FAFSA is free. We always tell our kids, if you're on a website and they charge you for the FAFSA, you're on the wrong website. FAFSA is completely free, but the CSS profile, they do charge, I believe it's $16 per school to send it. The thing with the CS profile, they are going to ask a lot more information. They're going to ask, what do you have for assets? What do you have in your bank account? What do you
Oh, so even if you've buried a lot of your money in different
CSS profile
this
is
communist
gonna find
service
it.
profile
It's going to
is
find
gonna,
it.
oh,
Yes, it is.
we don't like that.
No, we don't. But the benefit of the CSS profile is typically they are looking to give more financial aid to students. So, that is one of the benefits.
Now, when I look at schools, I get a kick out of seeing we give 45% of our students financial aid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Emily was one of those. They offered her $2,900 a year loan.
Right.
Yep.
Right, and that's another thing.
And I'm like, wait a minute, that's not financial aid.
Right,
That's $60,000. You're gonna loan me $2,900 at some 8%?
Right.
And that's something that you're always going to find in the pamphlets. The first thing you see in a pamphlet for a college, 90% of our students get financial aid. Okay, great. And our kids think, okay, financial aid, that's free money. So when we talk to our students, we say, okay, financial aid are grants and scholarships, which
Don't have to
be
pay them
paid
back.
Right.
But they also, they might be renewable for 4 years or they might not. So you have a parent who does whatever they can do and they get some scholarships for your first
Oh,
year.
those sneaks. So I may get
Yes.
10 grand the first year and
The
then I'm
first
on my
year.
own?
So we tell parents, you have to find out, is it renewable? Because you can do everything you can to send your kid to first year of college. How are you going to pay for second year?
if all of a
Can they
sudden
go
I'm
to the
already
second
here.
one? Right.
And that's why we've seen, I mean, I know I have seen a lot of students going to private schools their first year and then they call me up.
I'm
"Tell me,
transferring.
I need my transfer to go to Bridgewater. I can't afford
I
this.
can't afford 65 grand.
Right.
That's kind of what we told you. So
And-
I do like to look over the financial aid packages of my students to try to help them understand that.
But isn't that hard? Because a lot of people don't want to open up their financial.
Most people are pretty open to talking about it if it's going to help their
And
kid.
it's confidential.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
of
mean,
course, we're counselors, everything.
I was going to say, that's like going to my doctor and having
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
You're not going to say, hey,
Yep.
you makes $32.
100%.
$32.
I'm
No.
married with kids. I get
Yeah,
home.
yeah. Right.
Exactly. So, I mean, that is a part of it. So the financial aid are the scholarships and grants, but they're also the loans. And there is a limit on what the the federal government will let a student loan borrow, which is $5,600 per year. So if you do the
No, wait a
FAFSA,
minute, seriously.
$5,600. So if you do the FAFSA, and you're going to get the Stafford subsidized and unsubsidized loans.
$65,000, and they're saying that the student
will do
can do 5.
$5,600.
So somebody's
per
going
year
to come
for
up with
limit.
60 grand.
Exactly.
Correct.
That's the unmet
Correct.
need.
That is the unmet need we're talking about. So, okay, great, 90% of the kids have gotten financial aid, but of those 90% of the students, how much of that is just the federal
See,
loans?
I thought it was worth applying to the FAFSA because they tell you how much you
We
can
tell
afford.
everyone to do it. Yeah.
You know, and I said,
So,
it's great for
right.
your ego. They say, you're
Yeah.
rich.
Yeah.
You can afford. Now, where's the part that says how I can afford $5,000 a month?
Right.
Oh, and
I missed that part.
Right.
and
Right.
the other problem with the FAFSA too is that, okay, so when you do the FAFSA, it's a computer program, and this computer tells you how much you can afford.
It's an
for college
equation.
a year. It's an
Yeah.
equation. So they might say 5,000, they might say 20. So let's say they tell you can afford $15,000 a year to college. That's what your family can afford. So you send that number to Holy Cross, you send that number to Bridgewater State, you send it to UMass Boston. So they look at that number. So a
They take it right off the
$65,000
top.
school isn't going to say, oh, you can only afford 15.
I'll
so
give
we're
you
gonna,
50.
We're free for the rest. No, they're going to take that number, and they might say, well, you know what? Yeah, we'll give you a loan, but maybe a presidential scholarship if you have great grades, but you're on your own for the rest. Like, they don't have to
Meet
that
need.
unmet need.
When we went to college, they did.
They
In
did,
some
yeah.
way. You know, when
Yeah.
I was in college, they met
Yeah,
they
but-
met your needs.
So,
So
with all due respect, I graduated Holy Cross at $6,200 a year all
Right.
in.
right, exactly.
I mean, the dinosaurs were running around campus, but it was 60, and I was amazed because my mom and dad, I mean, mom worked at Draper, and she was piecework, busting her tail for $11,000 a year,
Right.
and my dad was big money, 20 grand at General Motors. The fact that they could afford 6,000 amazed me.
Yeah.
But today, I mean, how many people around have 65,000
Just
disposable
lying
income?
around.
I'm freaking out about my kids now. And
Right,
that's why we
I know,
do
and
see
our-
a growth in community college for a year or two, or looking at state schools, because it is very, very difficult to get
But now,
into.
questions come up like, should I be putting money away in my child's name? You know,
I
I've
am.
got a granddaughter coming.
Yeah.
So if I start putting money away, you know, in 3 months she'll be delivered.
Right.
Is that going to count against me when she gets to college and has money put away in her name?
Well, the fact that it is in your name is great. So if you have a 529 as a grandparent, that is wonderful.
That's good?
That is very good. A grandparent having a 529.
Oh, because it won't count towards their
'Cause
assets.
when they are,
They're not
when
asking
they're
for your
seniors
assets.
and they're filling out the financial aid, they're filling out the FAFSA, they're going to ask for
Mom and
your
dad.
granddaughter's income, which would be not much, and mom and dad. They don't ask for grandparents' income on the FAFSA.
You know, I had never thought about that.
And we had a woman last year. We have our financial aid nights every year. She came out last year, and that was one of the things she said. A grandparent opening a 529 plan is probably the
So
best
we're
way to
much
go.
better off not putting it in the princess name.
Depending upon what kind of schools they end up applying to, yeah. So if
Well, they're going to go class of 35 at Holy Cross.
right,
So,
okay, we've already got it decided. It's Emily 2.0.
Yes, there's no question. I mean, we already had this discussion where my son-in-law said, you know, I'm really confused. All my son's college clothing
Yeah.
is Penn State or Holy Cross.
Right.
And my darling bride and I looked at each other and said, do you see a problem with that? I said, no. We split it evenly.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
goes, but we didn't go there. It's like, wait a minute, you're still confused. This is our grandson.
Right.
You had your moment of glory. Now you're done. I don't care where you went.
Right.
The
If
only-
you cared, buy some sweatshirts. What's the problem? Get on your game.
But, you know, okay, class of 35 or whatever it's going to be.
Yeah.
So now it's something that I had not thought of is that I can shelter money by having it in my name from counting against
you can still have it. You would have it in your granddaughter's name. It would
But
still
you would be the
she
custodian.
beneficiary.
But- okay.
Right.
But you open the 529 yourself.
Right.
So you are the one that's contributing. She would be listed as the beneficiary.
She and Chase will be the beneficiaries. So if I pass away, the money still is for them.
And anyone that they are related to. So 529 is you know.
But when they go to apply and they say, okay, the $32 your grandfather put away, they can't see it.
that's not
Right.
reported on the FAFSA.
Right.
That's a good deal.
Right.
Hopefully, by that time.
Hopefully it
it'll be
stays that way
29,
because
right?
that's our plan too, right?
Well, I mean, I have a
I don't even
529
want
for
to
my
think
kids. It's-
at 65,000 now
You just
what
hope it
tuition's
bursts.
going to be when my grandson and granddaughter get the Holy Cross. And yes, Alexis will be having a heart attack
Yeah.
for me saying that, but too bad.
Right.
Any other, I won't say tricks, but any other suggestions like that?
I mean, you know, basically starting early. I would say, you know, like we had mentioned before about the financial aid nights, is that it used to be, you know, just for the seniors, and now we're trying to target earlier and earlier. I think, especially for financial, if the earlier you can plan, the better.
And apply for scholarships.
Yeah.
A lot of scholarships. You can start applying for scholarships when you're a freshman in high school. Not through Milford High, but there are tons of national scholarships and, you know, scholarships related to where your parents work, the church you go to, like
It's a lot of work.
being left-handed,
You know,
being over
it's tough,
5'10",
'cause
like
we had said we were going to go through scholarships tonight. We're going to have to invite you back because we're not going to have time.
is a lot.
There are a lot.
Because
Yeah.
that is something I'd like to do sooner than later because too many times parents wait till senior year and it's
Right.
February, March, and it's like
Yeah.
too late.
Yep.
So one of the best websites that we found is fastweb.com, fastweb.com. It's a scholarship database. So we have students go in, they create an account, and then they put in all their personal information, all their parents' information, where they work, GPAs, anywhere their siblings went to college, and then it will match them with scholarships that they could possibly qualify for.
I was amazed because Lexi got one from Target, right?
Yeah.
Every little bit helps.
And you know, again, a grand here, a grand there. I mean,
Right.
that-
Absolutely. Books are expensive. You know, things are not cheap.
You chip away at it.
Chip away as best you can. So yeah, the earlier that you can start, the better.
Now, my parents had no clue. They came from Portugal.
Mm-hmm.
I remember my father went to college night. He put on his little hat, his suit. He went down there because they told him, your son should be supported.
Mm-hmm.
I have no doubt he sat in the auditorium
Right.
and just, okay, somebody said if I want to be supportive, I should be here, I'm here. But how do you take somebody? You know, we've got a lot of ethnic people who really don't understand. What do you do for them?
Well, we're extremely lucky. We have 2 bilingual counselors. So we have one that speaks Spanish and one that speaks Portuguese. They work incredibly hard to on outreach, on translation. They're telling these people what they need to try to understand. But it's a lot of the time, as I'm sure your father found out, it's an education in the American education system. That's what's really hard. Okay, college, what's that?
Right.
What do you mean? We send our kid away. Like that, he did a good job, so we send him away? Explain that. You know, it's so outside of the realm of...
And yet it was so important to my parents.
Right.
You know, whatever I needed for school, when we got offered to go to Dean Jr., my dad bought me a car. 65 Malibu.
Right.
Right?
Nice.
But it was a car.
Right.
And, you know, for us, back then it was $2,000 or $1,500. That was a lot of money.
Absolutely.
For my family. But, you know, for him, if it was for school, once he understood that if we didn't have a car, we couldn't get to Franklin,
Right.
he went out and got a new car.
Right.
Well, he got the new car. I got the old car.
Right.
That
That's
was
the
all
way
right.
it should be.
That's the
Yeah.
example. And I just always worry, you know, that some of these parents, like my mom and dad, who will do anything for their kids,
Yeah.
just don't know what to do.
Right.
Right, and that's why we're here. We have 6 guidance counselors at the high school. We're always accessible to parents. We have parents come in and meet with us a bunch. We try to do these outreach nights at the high school to, you know, parents work, so we try to do things after hours. And we're available to help.
And obviously, parents can call in.
Oh,
if they
yeah.
have questions.
Of course,
Yep,
come in,
for sure.
call us, email us.
Email, yep.
Come
I
in.
hate to say it, I'm going to have to invite you back to go over scholarships, because at this point, I want to thank the 6 loyal viewers we have. We've run out of time. As always, get to know what's available. I think what you'll find is the more you know our school system, the more you'll appreciate it and the dedication of the people at the school system throughout Milford High, Woodland, Brookside, Memorial. If I forget anybody, I'm sorry.
Stacy.
Stacy. Yes, Ms. Angela, it would hurt me if I don't mention Stacy. But as always, may God bless. May tomorrow be a better night than tonight. And stay tuned, because we're going to invite these people back to talk to us soon about how to apply for scholarships, and especially the ones in Milford. Good night, all. Thanks for joining.
Not too long since I've been home.